My name is Tolg and I exist, therefore I think too much. Checking if the microphone was plugged in. So, when I talk to people, I normally say, you can ask whatever you want and I'll just talk. I'm an open book, I just need to know what you're comfortable with. Because apparently I'm good at making people uncomfortable. I generally and genuinely have no sense of normalcy. I don't understand societal expectations a lot of the time, and therein I oftentimes do not comply with them. Sometimes I know what they are and still choose not to comply with them. Like sitting on things you're not supposed to sit on. Windowsills. Ultimately, though, I like to blend in as much as possible. However, having said all of this, I often find myself saying things I shouldn't say. And by saying, I shouldn't say it, I'll spend months to years afterwards regretting having said it because I go over and over and over all of the ways in which it could be interpreted, or people could walk away from it, what people could take away from it. So there's the premise of what I'm about to say. When I was younger, my mom said, don't tell anybody about anything that includes me. If your story includes me in it, then you're telling my story for me. So don't talk, essentially. So I didn't tell people what was happening. I didn't tell people what I went through because everything I went through included someone else. So unless someone told me a story, my understanding was if it came out of your mouth, then you're fine with it being said. But if it's something I observed, it's not okay to talk about it. At which point I had to understand what gossip was. And apparently, even if someone says it, it's not okay to say. So context matters. That was the next premise. When I was younger, for I don't know how long, because sense of time is all mixed up. I stayed with my grandma for a window of time. And later on, in the 2010s, maybe 2017, 2018, I don't know, my grandma died. And she lived a very long life. So it's nothing to be remiss about. But when she died, I met a lot of my family that, I may have met when I was a toddler, but for the majority of my life, I didn't know them at all. So to me, that one sentiment, the blood of the womb, or the blood shed on the battlefield, is thicker than the water of the womb. Sat heavily in my life. So when I met everybody, something I was told by my mom, which, grain of salt, is, you knew Grandma the best. Why don't you go tell them stories? And in my head, I thought, I can't have known her better than her children knew her, so why aren't you telling the stories? Because my stories are bad stories. They're not like heartwarming. They're not necessarily entangled and entrenched in Lord knows what, but I'm pretty sure when I was being taken care of by her, she was already overcome with depression and in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And she had some patterns here or there that would allude to culture she was raised with. Wash your feet before you go to bed. But most of it, I didn't know her. I just knew what it looked like to lose everything. And she married a man that made her feel comfortable one way or another. And she kept all these comforts in a closet. There's this theory, kind of Freudian theory, that everybody in their house has this one room that they don't use. This is probably on the supposition that you have earned enough, one, to have a home, and two, to have an extra room. But I think it deals more with prior generations, that there's normally a room that goes unused. And the mention of Freud is that the house is a structure that subconsciously, psychologically, one understands represents all of the compartments in their own person. So this one unused room is untapped growth for the individual. It represents to them subconsciously the ability to continue expanding themselves. My grandma's unused room was where she kept all of her valuables. I was told I wasn't supposed to go in there, but eventually you realize no one's actually holding the reins. So I would go in there a lot. It had the silk pillows and it had the silk couches and this kind of china cabinet-esque thing where she had porcelain figures, and I was too short to cause any damage to anything, which is probably why at some point she just didn't care that I was going in that room. I would just stand in front of the cabinet and stare at the porcelain figures. And the reason I liked that room was because it was supposed to be used as the main bedroom. It had an off-suite restroom, and it was the only restroom that had a skylight. So I thought it was really cool as a toddler being able to look up at the sky in this little cubbyhole room. Initially, she kicked up a fuss. She didn't want anyone using it. So I didn't use it the majority of the time. But I still liked walking into that room. And it would be years and years later, me trying to sort out my subconscious and my conscious and what actually happened. And she would walk into that room, and she would walk into the closet and stand there. And as a child, you know, you look at adult actions like without context. So it didn't make sense, and I just thought she was kind of weird. But I walked into closets all the time because I like small spaces, small dark spaces. So I thought, you know, to each their own. It would be after the funeral that I realized that she kept her most valuable things in that closet untouched for years, unused. Fur coats, jewelry, unworn. And me suffering depression, I know what it looks like to just very literally bed rot. So I know she was going through pretty extreme depression. I can now understand that some of the emotional, I want to say outbursts, but it sounds too extreme, just reactions, were depression. And she would walk herself into that closet and just stand amongst the things that were valuable. I've been around couples that boast that they do a lot of work for a lot of people, have jobs, do volunteer work, be a part of the community, and everything is moving, constantly moving. There's always something to do. And I was sitting on the couch, not doing anything, feeling very unvaluable. And the reason I mentioned these two existences, the couples that have things to do all the time, my grandma, is the same question I asked at the bar when I talk too much. How far would you go to make your life feel valuable? Do you accept the value that other people give you? Or do you raise the price and extend the value towards other people that you want them to believe you have? Live like you have it, and if you have it, live like it's forever. Or the more blue-collar version of that sentiment. Dress for the job you want, not the one you have. We live in a consumer society, and we have structured our own intrinsic understanding of value for ourselves around consumerism. Who's going to buy the product? Who are we selling the product to? Who do we want to buy the product? And it becomes competitive marketing. Aesthetic is no longer how we want to be represented, but who we want to buy us. How far would you go to feel valuable? Do you want to feel valuable, or do you want to be valued? Do you want to be useful, or do you want to be used?